It's Friday, the 19th of May, 2023. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories that you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's jump into story number 1. The labour market in Australia is cooling, it seems, with the unemployment rate last month jumping to 3.7% after 4,000 jobs were shed from the economy.
The result was unexpected. Most economists were forecasting a jump in employment of about 20 or 25,000, and it does suggest the strength in the labour market might have peaked. In terms of numbers, the unemployment rate rose from 3.5% in March to 3.7% last month. The number of people in the workforce, that's participation rate, fell slightly, though it does still remain historically high. At 3.7%, that's the same as it was back in January. But back then, the Bureau of Statistics said it was probably a temporary rise in the rate because many unemployed people had a job to go to, a bit of a measurement issue. No such explanation yesterday. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said the increase in the unemployment rate reflected higher interest rates and global uncertainty.
So what's this mean then, Sean? Are we likely to see the unemployment rate just kind of keep on rising now for the rest of the year?
Probably, or at least the trend will be upwards. Forward indicators, things like job ads, vacancy rates, hiring intention surveys, all indicate a slowdown in the employment market. Yesterday's figures also add to the argument that Australia isn't about to embark on a wage price spiral, which is bad for inflation. Now, remember earlier this week, we saw a measure of wages, the wage price index, come in at a solid but not a worrying rate. Transfer all that to what does it mean for interest rates? Well, a rising unemployment rate sits in the category of no more rate rises. In fact, the Reserve Bank's charter says it needs to target both price stability and full employment, but we know Governor Phil Lowe has focused mostly on price stability. Interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, sure will be. Story number 2, Sean. China will immediately resume imports of Australian timber, which is a very, very positive sign, you'd say, in the thawing of the relations between Beijing and Canberra.
China's ambassador to Australia, Xiao Chen, said the $1.6 billion annual trade will be resumed after importers meet a series of conditions of Chinese customs authorities. Trade Minister Don Farrell, who last week visited Beijing, welcomed the announcement, saying it was a great outcome for the Australian forestry sector. He added that he looked forward to the full resumption of trade for all affected products as soon as possible. Now, during COVID, China imposed bans or prohibitive tariffs on about $20 billion of Australian imports, including barley, seafood, cotton and metals. Looks like that's coming to an end, or at least we're starting to break it down. Now, yesterday, Xiao also said both countries are working on a meeting between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and President Xi Jinping in China later this year. He also added that Australia's military build-up under the AUKUS Pact and the recently released Defence Strategic Review was absolutely unnecessary because China posed no threat to Australia.
Story number 3, Sean, I'm going to have to ask for your help with this one because software accounting group Xero's share price jumped 9% yesterday. Even though the group announced a $106 million loss, how does that work?
Well, the underlying business is doing really well, but the bottom line, not so well, because it had to write down the value of a couple of its platforms. It has a time-tracking rostering business called Planday. It has another one, which is all about invoice borrowing, called Waddle, not doing so well. So they had to write the values of those down. That hurt the bottom line, but revenue was up 28%, and their churn rate is very, very low. If you exclude the write-downs, pre-tax earnings were up around 45%. That's why investors liked it. The group's also cut 800 jobs this year. Yesterday, Chief Executive Singh Cassidy flagged a review of its North American business, at least how it's executing that business. Xero now has 3.74 million subscribers, a little over half are in Australia and New Zealand.
Story number 4, in the US, Sean, the state of Montana is banning TikTok over national security concerns, setting up a potential legal fight over freedom of speech.
It's the first state to totally ban the app, and the governor of Montana signed a bill prohibiting downloads of TikTok. Kicks off on January 1. It prohibits app stores from allowing downloads of the app. Now, if they don't comply, TikTok and the App Store, Apple, Google, could face fines over $10,000 per violation per day. TikTok's response was that the bill infringes the US Constitution. The app, of course, is owned by Chinese company ByteDance. There's been growing concerns about the company's ties to Beijing. Reckon this one's heading to court.
Yeah, I reckon you might be right. Final one, story number 5. Sean, I think we've probably talked about Elon Musk at least twice, maybe 3 times already this week. But what's one more, especially when he just keeps on giving like this? He's now calling out people who work from home, saying it's an insult to those who have to show up in the workplace.
The Tesla chief executive said that firing up the laptop from home lowered productivity and also sent the wrong signal to factory workers and other employees who don't have that option. In an interview with CNBC, he said, and I quote, "People building the cars, servicing the cars, building houses, fixing houses, making the food, making all the things that people consume. It's messed up to assume that, yes, they have to go to work, but you don't. It's not just a productivity thing. I think it's morally wrong." He went on, "People should get off their goddamn moral high horse with this bullshit because they're asking everyone else to not work from home while they do. It's wrong." And to finish, the laptop class are living in La La Land.
So colourful, isn't it?
So colourful.
Certainly cuts through. There we go, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Friday, the 19th of May, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. If 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, the Amazon Echo smart speaker range comes with Alexa built in. Simply say, "Alexa, play the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed podcast" to catch the latest episode. Get yours now at amazon.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.